Let's now come to a second implication of these recommendations. If Hindi replaces English as the language for examination for recruitment to government, then candidates from non-Hindi states will be placed at a considerable disadvantage. They simply won't know the language, or they won't be as fluent in the language as candidates from Hindi-speaking states. And that will mean that gradually, or maybe pretty quickly, non-Hindi speaking candidates will get eliminated from all India services. And again, that has to be damaging for the fabric and unity of India.
I don't know how I can reinforce that point any further than by citing one statistic. Currently, many of the UPSC and related union government examinations are offered either in English or in Hindi, and much, much less so in regional languages. Already you can see that once these examinations started being offered in Hindi, there has been a much greater proportion of the total UPSC intake that comes from the Hindi-speaking belt, right? And many of them may be not proficient in English, and that may hurt their performance later because many of these people also go back to doing service in international postings, etc. But were you to make it now the only medium and reduce the options of other non-Hindi people, then you're going to end up with a monolithic workforce that only knows Hindi and finds it hard to function any other place in the world where there is not a universal basis for Hindi. That could be in the non-Hindi state. It could be on an international posting. It could be to the World Bank. It could be to the ED. Not the ED, the World Bank, the IMF as the executive director. It could be to the ADB. It could be to the AIIB. So all these individuals, because I'm finance minister, I'm talking about the agencies I know, but it could be the UN agencies. All these individuals will find themselves completely hamstrung. So I think there is, it's almost so profoundly wrong and so profoundly regressive and retarding that one wonders what was the motivation of creating such a report. I mean, at the core of it, that's the the heart of the issue. What was the intended upside of creating such a regressive, backward-looking, retrograde kind of report to the president?
Do you want to guess at the question you asked? What do you believe was the motivation behind what you call a regressive, retarding recommendation?
Yeah, it's hard for me to put myself in the heads of others with any degree of accuracy. But one thing that worries me is that a union government that is failing to deliver in terms of real growth, in terms of jobs, in terms of kind of quality of life to people, and a union government that has at best not suppressed the forces of bigotry and kind of othering and unrest, and at worst possibly encourage them, then I wonder if this is more of the same. And I'm just guessing here. Who am I to predict what the exact motivations were? But if I was to say what I'm afraid of that same logic, that those who are not able to deliver in real outcomes are starting to look for other ways that they can provide a wedge and start creating a kind of, a separation, an othering, a fractioning, a fracturing of society.
In other words, the government is covering up for its failures in so many other respects by pushing these recommendations in the hope it will A, deflect attention, and B, it will create a fracturing that may work to the government's political benefit. In a nutshell, that's
possibly.
Let's come to a third implication of these recommendations. Now, these recommendations make it constitutionally binding on state governments to propagate Hindi. To take your government as an example, if these recommendations are implemented, the Tamil Nadu government, in a state where Hindi is not spoken, in a state where Hindi is not even popular, will be now constitutionally bound to propagate Hindi. And secondly, if you don't do that, because it clearly goes against the wishes, feelings, and culture of your people, then you are liable, perhaps, to be dismissed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go into the realm of all those kinds of what I would consider both esoteric and extreme possibilities. But there's a problem of scale that people should not forget, right? If you're trying to do authoritarian things and thrusting things down the throats of people against their will, it's not feasible or realistic to do it to tens, let alone hundreds of millions of people. It's one thing if you're trying to suppress a country of 2 or 3 or 5 million people through authoritarian or dictatorial means. Maybe that's sustainable for some length of time. But a country of the vastness and plurality of India, I don't think such moves are in the realm of possibility in terms of success. They may yield all kinds of other outcomes. I don't want to speculate what those
Let me
but I'm not sure that it's within the realm of success.
Let me interrupt and put this to you. I accept that the possibility of your government being dismissed because of your opposition is esoteric and extreme, to use your language. But what is not esoteric and what is not extreme is the fact that if these recommendations are implemented, you will be constitutionally required to propagate Hindi. Are you prepared to do that?
No, I don't think we'd ever be prepared to do that. But again, I'm not, I'm one individual. I'm not even the minister, particularly in terms of in the portfolio of Tamil language and culture. I'm the finance minister. I have some views. Those are, of course, based on the public statements of my chief minister and the unanimous resolution passed in the assembly. Beyond that, all of us are just speculating and looking at hypothetical scenarios. I don't want to go into too far on that.
Let me end by putting two quick questions to you and ask you for brief answers. Given the fairly strong nature of your opposition and your government's opposition and the Tamil Nadu Assembly's resolution to these recommendations, would you be prepared to go to the Supreme Court to challenge them there and declare them as unconstitutional and dangerous to the fabric and unity of the country?
I would presume so. Again, I'm not the law minister, but I would presume so, that were such things to be actually kind of enter the realm of execution, I would presume that would be an almost automatic outcome. But I can't speak for the government. I just do a calculation and assessment as an individual.
But as you said, you presume that this would be an almost natural outcome for the government of Tamil Nadu to do.
Yeah, and many others, I presume. Not just Tamil Nadu. Why only Tamil Nadu? Why shouldn't the government of Karnataka do it? Won't they be worried about Kannada being affected? I mean, just because the BJP state doesn't mean that they're going to give up their language, right? BJP, governed state at this point.
So in a nutshell, and this is my last question, these recommendations not only have the potential, but they actually have the capacity, if they're implemented, to divide India, divide it between North and South. And that is not something anyone would want, and yet that is inherent in these recommendations and their implications.
Yeah, maybe I'll answer that slightly in a different way. In my understanding of the world, of our country, of the Tamil people, of the mindset, I don't see any way that such recommendations get successfully implemented, at least in the world as we know it today. And there may be many different outcomes, but I don't see any path from where we are today to a successful implementation of such recommendations were that to be attempted. Let me just leave it at that.
Mr. Tyagarajan, I thank you for this interview.